So today I'm here with Jubilee Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni, and we're talking matters politics, especially the fact that we have just come from an election year. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and sit with Kenyans.co.ke, and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You know, the first question I'm going to ask you is, how did you even hear about us, the Kenyans.co.ke? Are you a consumer of our news?
Yes, I am, and within Jubilee we also have a media team, and they also know where news comes from, who covers, kind of coverage that is done. And of course, one of the time I think I quite interacted with yourselves is when I needed to clarify something. And what I liked about it is that when the facts are available, you are able also to quickly put the facts into place. So I am a consumer of what you produce.
Well, thank you. So now let's get into it, and let us start with yesterday.
Yes.
Yesterday was a very eventful day for Azimio La Umoja. We had the Kamkunji rally, where we had bombshells. We like to use that word in our story. Bombshells dropped, and you know, you had the demands that were made by your presidential flag bearer, Raila Amolo Odinga. So I just want to ask you this. Let us start with the beginning of the day. We saw Jubilee MPs at State House. Where were you?
I was where I was supposed to be. That is at the airport, receiving the president, our presidential candidate for the just concluded general elections. And we were there as members of Azimio. And as the Secretary General, I needed to be where the party was. Yes.
So did these members who met the president inform you that they were going to meet him?
They didn't, and they didn't have to. And to me, it is not an issue that concerns me, perhaps in the manner people would think it does. Because you have a choice as a leader, and you make that choice every minute. And what influences you is only you who knows. Over time, Kenyans are able to tell where there is some consistency in terms of what one believes in and the thinking, and that we always leave it to the individual members of any grouping. I've been to parties before, a number of them, and I don't find anything unusual in what is happening.
Do you not think that it shows that there's some kind of disconnect within the party? Because the same day that you have some members of the party meeting President William Ruto at State House, the Azimio La Umoja rally, declaration is made that you do not recognize William Ruto as president. Do you think that this was a counter strategy that William Ruto used as a counter strategy?
We knew it was coming, and UDA had decided to get the headlines away from Kamkunji. But it didn't happen, and we have no issue with it. Yes.
All right. And now coming to what I've just spoken about, the fact that Raila Amolo Odinga said that Azimio does not recognize Mr. William Ruto as the president, neither do you recognize his administration. We cannot forget that the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, is still the chairman of Azimio. Is this also his take? Because we're trying to imagine that by the time you're coming to make such a declaration, he must have been consulted. Did he agree to these sentiments? And if he did, why did he then hand over the power? Or what is happening? Because you also had yesterday, former Murkweni MP Kabando Akabando actually state that, all right, so if that is the case, can the handover be reversed? You know, what exactly is Uhuru's opinion on all this?
I think a couple of things, and let me also say that just to finish on that bit of yesterday, that the behavior of some of the members of parliament is not anything that surprised us. We had, even during the campaigns of Azimio, you could actually see people who were conflicted. So these are people we keep nursing, helping, moving on. And maybe later in life, people will stabilize in what they believe in and where they want to belong. Fast forward, last year, the most important exercise that was before us as Jubilee with our party leader, with our presidential, with our president, the president of the Republic of Kenya then, Uhuru Kenyatta, was to manage the country and to hand over power. You will need to know that that's a constitutional mandate. It's a constitutional requirement. And it is the minimum that you can do as a president. What goes through the mind of a president, certainly unknown to us who have never been, but you can almost imagine, because our engagement with him was always that I do not want a bloodshed in this country. Not a drop do I want to see because of elections. So whatever it you take, we must do it. The responsibility was, one, to ensure there was peace, there was stability, and that transition happened. And that is why there was a transition team in good time, and engagement was always there. So even outside the campaigning, and remember, as Jubilee Party, we did not have a presidential candidate. So the behavior, the activities of a party without a presidential candidate are totally different from one with a presidential candidate. That's why you did not see the Jubilee of 2017 and 2013. And what Uhuru Kenyatta, the president, concentrated on most, of course, he had his preferred candidate. But even when the preferred candidate was not announced by IEBC or the outcome of Supreme Court, the first thing he did was to call us and tell us, we will still hand over power. The responsibility or the expectations of me by our constitution is to ensure there is smooth transition of power. That's what he did. He actually said, I will go to Kasarani. I know they will insult me. They will heckle, but I will do the decent thing. I do not want any bloodshed when I'm in power. And I tell you, that is something that we are proud of. It may not have found space because of the noise that has been there. But in the time, when the history is written, that is something that you cannot miss out. And he also said, we respect what the courts have said, but we don't accept it. So that was necessary to do. There is a question of, can you undo it? You cannot undo the handing over power. But the constitution is also not completely dead on issues. And handing over power and allowing the country to move on does not mean that that's the end of you fighting for your rights. And that is why the constitution is very heavy on the fundamental rights. So when we continue pushing for what we believe in is the correct thing as Azimio, it's because one is that we have the party leader, and our party leader is Raila Amolo Odinga. And activities of the party are dictated or directed more by the party leader and the Secretary General. You may have the chairman of the council. He is the chairman of our council. Every party has perhaps a group of trustees. The parties have been. I know they have trustees, and we have the chairman of the trustees. We have a board of trustees. But the engine of the party, the day-to-day activities, the decisions that are made, including like the ones we made yesterday or that were made prior to the happenings of yesterday, are more about the leader of the party leader. And the party leader, of course, he consults everybody. It's not upon us to engage him and ask him, have you consulted so and the rest. But yesterday when he got to the airport, we quickly wanted a quick discussion to find out what is it that we are up to. Where are we on this? When we go to what is our message? Many of us had messages in their minds, but somehow they seems to resonate with what the party leader had done. So we are all in it, and we agree with what we did yesterday and the demands that we put. Yeah.
So can we or can we not conclude that Azimio's sentiments are also the former president's?
The words of the president when he handed over power, before and after, and he made it public. He didn't say it behind the closed doors. He said, I'm handing over power, lakini kiongozi wangu ni Raila Amolo Odinga. And I want to leave it at that.
All right. Thank you for that. And now, still speaking on yesterday, you had an interview at Inoro TV, December 7th, where you were talking about, you had planned some rallies, yes? And you were talking about how during the rallies you will not insult President Ruto as he did to Uhuru, and you will give him the respect as the president. Those were your words.
Yes.
But now, yesterday, we see that you do not recognize him as the president. What has changed, Mheshimiwa?
When he was declared the president, but by IEBC, the crooked commissioners that we had, and of course the judgment of the Supreme Court, again, which we said we respect but don't agree with, he was the president. Yes? But that did not stop us from moving on. And we moved on. And as we were moving on, we came across evidence to confirm that what we always knew, something that we could put our fingers on, is now available. And when that becomes available, again, your constitutional right, your democratic right, to then say, what does that mean? When we have evidence that our results were tampered, altered for purposes of producing a candidate through computers, I have no reason to recognize that person as a president. And that is why yesterday we removed our tag of saying President William Ruto, and now we say Mr. William Ruto and Mr. Gachagua, because to us as Azimio, and not just the leadership of Azimio, remember, people vote for you because they have faith in you and they believe you can protect what they believe in. We did that because our followers have always been asking, how did this happen? What happened? How could the Supreme Court just dismiss us as people who produce hot air and are known for chasing wild goose all over? At this time, with the kind of serious politicians that we had on the table, why would we allow this to go on? But throwing words of we won to one another got to a point where we then thought, honestly, where are we? But before we could even do anything like Azimio, we actually wanted to push for the audit. And we are still pushing for the audit. A whistleblower, a patriotic Kenyan. We have called heroes, people heroes in this country. You know, Farah's heroes, and we confused champions and heroes. Heroes are people who put their lives on the line for a cause that doesn't quite benefit them as an individual, but it benefits the wider population of an area. A whistleblower of the nature who allowed us to see what happened before the tampering of results at IEBC, that is the hero who should be celebrated by this country. And we hope and believe that our laws are protecting them, because the law requires that any whistleblower must be protected at any circumstances and must also be put under very good care. I hope that is going to happen, because in the past we have also seen individuals who come out to help us as a country suffer and killed and they disappear. Yes.
So on this whistleblower, I'm sure you probably see what Kenyans write online. There's that question of where was this report during the time when it was really, really needed, during the Supreme Court presidential petition? Why is it coming out now? And with this knowledge out now, what can be done? What is the way forward?
A whistleblower will only blow the whistle when things have gone wrong. By the time we were going to court, remember we have only 14 days. By the time you are going to court, the announcement by IEBC, the time you are supposed to file the report in court, and the time the judgment is supposed to be given by the Supreme Court, the time is so short that there is no sensible whistleblower who can give you anything tangible. They know something wrong has happened, but to put something on the table that convinces people, it takes time, and it has taken him that amount of time. For him, of course, to be able to get these things from the server, it is not something you open and there are people. You remember Chepkati was supposed to have gone home on the 17th of November. Terminal leave. If you go on terminal leave today here, you will not report the following day. Once you sign your letter of terminal leave, You don't report the following day. Chebukati reported, and even on the 17th of January, 3 months later, he was in office. We are told he was the earliest in the office and the last to leave because they were fearing that something will come out. But this whistleblower must have been cleverer than them. He was able to get the information over that time. It is now available for us to consume. It will not have been available to the Supreme Court from any other source other than from IEBC. And this is why we demanded the servers to be opened by IEBC. If they had done it, we would not be where we are. The Supreme Court did not find it necessary within themselves. They didn't find the courage to also order IEBC to open the servers. 2017, they ordered IEBC to open the servers. IEBC still declined. And they gave us some fake things that the servers or the property rights are owned by somebody else. And of course, when that was not available from IEBC, then we could not do anything within the 14 days. So those who say that where was the evidence, then it was still available in the IEBC with Chebukati, but he refused to bring it to court. And that is why I believe I completely concur with what our party leader says. He belongs to jail. That is a criminal man walking around the streets of this Nairobi or wherever he is. They committed a heinous act on Kenyans. And for the reason that now we have the results and they are on the table, and it's very difficult because we are not you're not dealing with idiots. We know what it means to say that you don't recognize a government of the day. But we want to do it differently. We also hope that we are not going to get the disruptive activities that are brought about by government fighting and throwing tear gases and shooting at people. We know, and we have also individuals who can be able to analyze in data and tell you there is credibility in the information that has been given to us. These individuals, from the document, you can be able to see the coordinates on where that gadget was, the time when that voting was done, and you can be able to verify yourself without a lot of work. Those people who are conversant with IT are able to tell you this one. To dispute it, let us see where they will dispute it. And up to now, nobody has disputed. They are just asking where was the information? Why didn't you produce? But to say that it is wrong, none. And evidence in this country is always useful, irrespective of when it is available. Yes.
But how will you manage then to convince the masses that this is credible? Because when we look at the Supreme Court petition, we had the truckloads of evidence, you understand? And Azimio supporters really, really believed that, yes, we could actually win this petition, only for the Supreme Court to use words that, as you've just used them, hot air, wild goose chase, forgery. It begs the question of, how can we believe that what you are telling us now is really the truth?
It's available. If you go online, you'll find it there. Assess the information yourself. We also got it from there. It is not a whistleblower we had commissioned. This is a patriotic Kenyans who decided to say this was not a wild goose. This was not hot air. If you paid attention to the issues that have been raised by the petitioners, you would have arrived at this. Information that we had in our boxes had required that final backing of the evidence from the servers. We were able to show what happened, the documents that we had been gotten from our agents from the polling station. But we needed to show that final aspect of it from the servers. Let me say this. When we did the 2010 Constitution, we created constitution commissions. I think there are 7, 8 of them in our Constitution. And let me also say I was part of that constitution making process. I was part of the 27 members of parliament who sat in Naivasha. Verified, glorified, depending on which side of the divide you are on. And remember, the team that is in office is the one that rejected our Constitution 2010. All of them said it's not a good document. So they have no reason to, maybe they have no reason to respect it even now. But why we created these independent commissions and to give them mandates, that the mandate that was there before available to only the executive. is because we, as Kenyans, had gotten to a point where we could not trust the executive with those aspects of our governance, one of which is the electoral system in our country. We could no longer trust an institution under the management of the executive to manage our elections. So the independence that we give to IEBC and other commissions is independence that cannot be interfered with by the executive. Chebukati and any other former or even future chairman can call out the government, and they can always go to court, and the government will be found to have violated the constitution if they tried to do anything which has been given to IEBC. So the mandate of managing elections was not with the executive. There are those people who are saying, how would you have lost? You are the one in charge of the government. If you want to misuse the government, you can interfere with elections. If you want to misuse the powers of the executive, you can do all those things Ruto is saying that were to be done at Bomas and the rest. Nothing stops the head of state by sending the army and say, Fagia. But what stops the army from doing it is the army being open, clear-minded on what is required of them by the constitution. What stops the president from saying Fagia Hawa is him being conscious to what is expected of him as a head of state and as provided for by the constitution. A responsible president will not do what Kenyans have been asking him to do. Why did you allow Raila not to be declared the president? He would have been using powers that are not with him under the constitution. He would have violated the constitution. And that is the way of creating chaos in this country. So if you love this country more than the power that you think you have because you have institutions with you, you'd do what Uhuru did. If you are just a selfish person who believes in the outcome of an election, not the future of these generations to come, you will do what needed to have been done. So where are we today? We are where we are. I'm able to come and do this interview because of the behavior of one man, Uhuru Kenyatta, a person who loved this country more than the outcome of that election, who believes that you are a leader not because of the today, but to ensure that future generations fight the country. You can decide to collapse this country by just misbehaving. William Ruto and Mr. Rigathi have promised us already 2027. They are saying, kama tuliwashida wakiwa kwa serikali, na tukiwa kwa serikali, what are they telling us? They will use the instruments of power not allowed them by the constitution to rig elections 2027. And they have already started. They have dismantled the law that put the panel that elects IEBC together. They have constituted it alone without consulting other political parties. So they have already started rigging. And we say this, as Azimio, if we don't do what those who voted for us believed we are capable of doing, we will have let this country down. Because why would you want to go and vote 2027 when you know the people who are going to be allowed to go to parliament, to the members of county assembly, who will be allowed to go in state house, will be determined by Kamango? Why don't you allow him to determine ahead of time? If this, what we have started doing, we stop doing, then we have set ourselves up for failure. And we know the responsibility that is on our shoulders. And we will not let Kenyans down. This we started yesterday. Actually, we started on 7th of December. Yesterday was a continuation. We are not stopping. And we will be on date. And we want to do it peacefully. We do not want unnecessary fights. The government needs to do what they are expected to do. Let me put it clear. The government agencies, each one of them knows their constitutional mandate. We have a constitutional right to hold rallies and consult people. And people can decide to do what they think is right for them. Remember the opening article in our constitution. We, the people of Kenya, give ourselves this constitution. And we, the people of Kenya, can decide to exercise this power directly, the sovereign power directly, or through our elected representative. So when you see even a group of people deciding to go and perhaps like the ones you are saying going to State House, remember the Kenyans who also gave you that authority can decide to take it away from you even if you still walk around like a member, but exercise the power directly. And I'm telling you, watch this space.
Wow. And now that we're actually talking about I love the fact that you have very, very vividly explained the whole system and deep state, because that has been a point of debate. Because it's always a question of, you had the system, you had the deep state. As you've just said, how could you let Raila Odinga lose? Now, there are members of Azimio, let me just mention him, for example, Babu Owino, who actually said that Uhuru being the chairman, or Uhuru being a part of Azimio, was a long con. Do you feel that is the case, or do you feel like having Uhuru on Azimio's side hurt Azimio more than it benefited them?
One, of course, is that when we hear individuals, sometimes some very young, budding politicians, very, people I admire. Babu, I've told him many times I have a liking for him, because when you sit with him as a person, he has a very nice heart. Of course, when he goes in front of the public, I think something else gets, and it's normal until you're able to control those excitements. But he's a very fine guy. And of course, the issue of everybody would feel long. This is really a long call, and you can understand. There are still people who have not recovered, even from Jubilee, who say, "How could we lose when we had Uhuru?" But remember, again, with IEBC, and I have done it in my own area, you do not even need agents. IEBC is supposed to conduct elections in this country to ensure that that person whom Kenyans believe in becomes their leader. And that person need not have any money. To have agents in this country is a very expensive affair. We have very many young, youthful leaders who can be able to take us to heights unknown in this country, but don't have a penny in their pocket. When you continue talking about where were your agents, you are actually saying you never want any of those young people to ever come near power. And I want to inform Kenyans today, it is for that reason that we give IEBC a lot of money. You don't need an agent if you have a trustworthy IEBC and a functioning IEBC commission. The fact that we fear them and we keep hiring our agents all over is to confirm that we have no faith and no trust in IEBC. IEBC needs to do something very simple. Of course, now we are saying we'd rather go back manual because we have thieves who are using computer technology to steal elections in this country. And they're also doing it in other countries. By the way, Holland, France, and other countries have decided to go manual. And they are advising others, go manual. Your leadership will be determined far away from your boundaries, but through the computers. But this is the thing. You are just supposed to display, show the way the results are moving from one corner of this country on the screens. The PO there announces, and you can see it coming, and it eventually ends up on the portal. You demonstrate transparency. By now, we would be saying we have agents in the commission. But they decided to conceal it. They don't allow us to see it. They tamper with it.
But
and when you ask,
the portal was open.
Yes, and this portal, when you go through the report that we are now going through of the whistleblower, you can actually see where the interference was coming, and that's why the delay was coming in with the portals. That is why some constituencies never found their results on the portal, because the tampering was being done in between the process. And even then, let me just finish by saying that for you to win the trust of Kenyans, not just when you're working for IEBC, but even when you're working in the office of the DPP, when you're working in the office of EACC, you have to actually demonstrate transparency. It's not an easy thing, but you keep working on it daily. Let me tell you the way God works. No, I can't tell you how God works, but let me tell you one of the things I saw, and I could tell this is an act of God. During the handing over or the signing off of Chebukati, by again the design of the, for me, it's God. He brings in another commissioner whose term is also coming to an end, Archbishop Wabukara. Contrast the two. One has a report. He's saying, I'm handing this report to the executive of what we have been doing. The other one comes and says, I'm handing over commissioners. I have no report to hand over. Why? Because reports are handed over through a constitutional process. But this other gentleman known as Chebukati completely violates the constitution, comes with the report and hands over to the executive. What has he done to us as Kenyans? The same thing we sought to run away from 2010. Of an aspect of our governance in this republic which we cannot entrust with the executive, he hands over to the executive. He hands over an empty shell to Ruto to do what he wants so that he can win the elections of 2022-27. A complete violation of the constitution by Chebukati and by William Ruto. All of them in front of us, reported real time, and Wabukara comes and tells them it is the wrong thing to do. The constitution provides how a report should be handed over. In fact, he was short of saying, my words now, I am here by mistake. It's only that I could not ignore an invitation from the head of state. What do I hand over to you? Commissioners here, and the vice chairman is here. This commission continues to function. It doesn't function because I was here. And my tour of duty is finished. I'm going home and I thank God I have delivered. And for the time Archbishop Wabukara was in office, it is the best time we have had with EACC. They may not have gotten to where we wanted them, but they have shown us the way. Look at the recoveries that have been done. Of course, they are being reversed by William and Gachagua. They have released all the criminals. Everybody who had money that we needed to pay, needed to be paid to Kenya Revenue Authority, has been told you are scot-free and you have been appointed to actually oversee the same correction of revenue in this country. What a fallacy. How can we allow this to continue on to go on as a country? I mean, and that is part of the reason why our meetings at Kamkuji will continue. And who is doubting, you who is doubting, think twice. So don't allow this country to go that route. We've been there before. We saw it. We can tell that in another year, if we don't give this a stop, this country will be up for grabs by many people. We were growing this economy. IMF, September, the economy grew by 9.3%. The highest we have ever achieved. December, we had hit 4.2%. IMF report. Today, I don't know whether we're even growing. I think we're just insulting one another. Attending barriers. I mean, the heads of state, their major activity cannot be attending barriers. What watazikwa tu, uweko ama uziweko. You have so many issues to fix in the office that you are given to you. But you are over here every time. And the fact that you are not, I was not seen in a church on Sunday, doesn't mean that I didn't attend a church service. That's showbiz. And it's not necessary. A cruelness, this is a really cruelness regime that we have. Planless. I want a direction, not a directionless.
Now that you
Jesus Christ.
Now that you have said, Mheshimiwa, that the reason why you're having the Kamkunji rallies is to bring these wrongs to light, is that the only reason? Because, of course, there's that perception of there's a handshake loading. Somebody is looking for a handshake. But Raila Odinga himself has said yesterday, I don't want a handshake. William Ruto replied, you heard him say that, don't tell us you don't want a handshake. We know you. And we know what you want. You're not getting anything from me. Those were his exact words. What do you have to say to that?
That if we had any clue, and this is why I'm saying, this is a regime that is clueless, planless, directionless, radarless, everything less. If you're looking for a handshake, you do not look for a handshake with fellows who are clueless. They are planless, leaderless, directionless, radarless. You don't look for a handshake with individuals of that nature. Because if you know you want a country to go somewhere, you want a handshake with a team of people who can at least help you or continue in the path you believed in. When Raila joined Kibaki through the Grand Coalition government, look at the achievements we made. We even got ourselves the 2010 constitution, something that had been elusive for the last 20 years, counting from 2010 backwards. And why you are able to carry out this interview, why I can say the regime that we have today is clueless. They are planless, the electionless, radarless, they have completed everything else. It's because of what we were able to achieve with Raila and Kibaki working together. So there was a good reason as to why the two gentlemen could come together and say, you mean good for the country, I also mean good for the country. Come, let us move on. Fast forward, 2017. Uhuru gets the reins of power, 50%, and he told us, this is why you respect the gentleman. He came and said, I have half the country. 50% voted for me. The other 50% is with this mzee. There is nowhere I can go without him. He has half the country, I have half the country. I want the country to move together. If I don't have him on board, I have no country. William did not like it. He believes in moving on our own. Uhuru reaches out to Raila. And Raila says, these are the things I need done for us to move on. Uhuru says, these are the ones I also want done for us to move on. They end up with a 9-point agenda, which involves including amending the constitution so that we can manage the country better. And from that point onwards, Raila says, I don't even want to be in your government, but I'm now going to work with your government. I mean, that is a kind of handshake that you're looking for, of a person who has a clue of where he's going, a direction, a plan. He has a feeling of the country, and you can see he wants to carry the whole country. I worked with Kibaki more than even one may want to imagine. And if you ever sat in his office or walked into his office and said the Prime Minister, Raila was the Prime Minister, the Prime Minister has done or done, wewe kichwa yako iko wapi? Sasa yote fitina, sema ile umekuja kufanya kusaidia Kenya. You could never walk into his office to say anything ill about his partner. But he never told the public. The same thing about Uhuru. Said, mambo ya Raila, don't tell me about you mzee. He's my brother. So, and he was not going to agree with William on that account. Now, you look at Raila. How can he get into a handshake with the people who the first thing they do is to remove subsidies? The social support system that is every Kenyan is crying for, that was making us make sense of our living. You remove that and you say subsidies don't make a meaning. Americans are subsidizing their people. Britons are subsidizing their people. They've been allowed longer than you in form of a democratic space. And you come and make, but you know, you put it in such a good language, cheng, so Kenyans resonate with you and they think, but down the line, 3 days down the line, they say, wapi, kwa nini uga bado iko na bei kali? Na ulitoa ile shida Uhuru alikuwa ameweka ya subsidies. Kwa nini petroli bado iko bei kali? Na ulitoa ile shida ilikuwako, na hata Biblia uliweka chini. Hii kwa nini hizi mambo hazienda chini? So when you talk about handshake or working together, it's because Raila must be able to see what is this that you are doing that can resonate with what we believe in. As it is today, zero completely. 300% increment on taxes, on even nail polish, the things nyinyi mnatumia. 300%, that's the highest tax rate hike we have ever gotten in this country. You remove subsidies on education. Jesus Christ. Where do we go as a country if we cannot educate our young people? We need to sacrifice everything for people to go to school. Everything. There is nothing as good as an educated population. You are able to do this because you are able to get education that was given by Kibaki. I can get it from your age. That base that was given, that is why this room has young people. If that education was denied, and that is why Clinton said, when he was asked, who do you want to visit after his term of office? Who do you want to visit in the whole world after you go out of office? He said, President Kibaki, Kenya. That gentleman who chose to give Kenyans education talks of free primary education, secondary, and the rest. You cannot put the baggage of school fees on people. They will not pay. We have so many single mothers in this country. We have so many orphans. We have so many families that cannot feed themselves. And their only hope in future is educating their young ones. So when you see a regime that says increases fees by 10%, they are saying you must remove help. If you educated your child through a private school, nursery school, and the rest you people, if your children went to a private nursery school, kindergarten, they went to primary school, private, he is saying you not educate them at the university level kwa sababu iko na pesa. Where hiyo kichwa iko wapi? Are you in this country or somewhere else? What vendetta do you have against some people who are working hard? That's kind of, it makes you fear, and that's not a regime you want to join in any way. It's actually a regime you want to remove from power through the known ways. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And I can see you're a very vocal politician, and you're very, very passionate, even from the way you're speaking here. And now, last Sunday, that's why I'm coming to something. Last Sunday during the Sunday service, DP Gachagua mentioned you. You heard him when he said that you are being used as a mouthpiece by somebody higher in power. Is this true?
Well,
Azimio.
when you get into politics, you expect people to accuse you of all sorts of things. Quite a number of the issues you really don't bother paying attention to. I must bring myself to the point where I can listen to Mr. Gachagua and Mr. Ruto speaking, whether on live. I must get myself to that level so that we can deal with the issues that they raise from on a day to day. That is not a comment I listen to, but I've heard it. Whenever it is that you challenge another, one will accuse you of being used by somebody else. Before Uhuru became the president, they would accuse him of being used by another. And even being used by another, for as long as what you believe in and what the other one believes in are tallying, it to me does not worry me at all. Two, when you are looking for the difference you can see, if you see my thought process, the issues I believed in before the 9th of August 2022 elections, and the things I'm talking about now, I actually find myself freer to deal with them because they were not meant to win an election. These are issues that are generational. My concern today is how do we hand over this country to our grandchildren? What kind of a country are we leaving to our grandchildren? And if you can't have that in your mind, you have no place. You are just a populist politician. And there is a difference between that leadership and the leadership of a politician, a populist politician. A populist politician is what will make the church laugh at you, make go home happy because you just made some populist thing, and sometimes being very vulgar. This is something I found with the regime that we have today. They are vulgar limitlessly, and it does not matter who is in front of you. They don't differentiate when you have your mothers there and their daughters there. They say all sorts of things kwa kila mtu. But of course people consume and they feedback by being joyful. But that doesn't help us in terms of where we want to leave our grandchildren. And we must pay attention to that. And I can tell you, my balance of political life, God knows how long, is for that. I would need to leave this country better than I found it. If it was not the sacrifices of our fathers and our mothers, we would not be where it is. They did not, if they were selfish, we would not be doing what we are doing. You must be selfless. And for you to be selfless and to move on, you must believe in something. And that something must be in the generations to come. There's a difference between elections and generations. And I tell you, Gachagua is a person I know because we were together in the university. Na namjua zaidi kuliko vile mnaweza fikiria.
Do you have a relationship with him?
Tunaelewana kidogo na ni kuelewana kwa sababu mimi nikifikiria mambo yake nacheka tu. We had a group of meeting the other day of some people we call ourselves the group of 87. That's a group of university colleagues. We were together. We would eat together, joke together, go out looking for were marriage partners together and such things. So we were seated together and we were going over issues. And I tell you, it was a very joyful thing because Gachagua, we know him from that time. He wasn't part of the 87 group. Every universities kila watu wako na group yao, ni kama chama ya siku hizi. So he wasn't part of our group, but within our group there are those who are with him at high school. Kwa hivyo tunamwelewa kidogo, na mengi haichagazi. Na sasa hata akisema yale anasema kwangu ni kwa sababu pengine ananijua na anajua mimi si mtu ya kutumiwa. Alishindwa kunitumia kama alikuwa na bidii ya kufanya hivyo.
All right. Now, coming to the timing of this whistleblower report, there are claims that the fact that this report came after President William Ruto stated, because he also came with his own bombshell, stated that there was an attempt to kidnap and murder the immediate former IEBC chairman, Wafula Chebukati. And we've had his prime CS back the claims and say that these claims are not ill-founded. There is evidence. He's receiving intel from this.
That's CS...
Prime CS...
Prime. You know,
CS.
now this is a new title of my good friend, William.
Yes, Prime CS. Yes, because he was also asked by other journalists, and that's what he said, that he can't just be making up these claims. And so you also look at the timing and you're thinking, are you trying to divert the attention from that? And also, as Azimio, I mean, what was your reaction to these claims? Because I've seen some of Azimio counterparts saying that why hasn't he mentioned anybody? Why have there been no arrests?
The Prime Minister, former Prime Minister, addressed that issue yesterday. He really summarized it in a manner that maybe I would not have said it, but now he said it, I can say it also. When you are the head of state, without doubt, you are privy to a lot of information that is shared with you. As a head of state, you must be judicious in the way you deal with the information that you receive. And we as Kenyans will get to respect you more and accept you as our leader depending on how you treat information that is given to you on a daily basis. I remember one time we were in State House and the former president told us, you know, najua I said, najua tofauti yangu na nyinyi ni kwamba mimi ninajua hata pahali ulilala jana. If I wanted to know, I know where you slept. So even as you sit in front of me, I know a lot, that I already have a lot, and they receive it almost very early in the morning. A lot of, but you see, he didn't tell you where you slept last night. Why? Because he's judicious, he knows how to deal with the information that's given to him. If Mr. William Ruto received that kind of information from the intelligence system or from whatever source that he did, to come and announce it there is just making an alarmist statement. And again, having known him for 4 years, with the propaganda machinery that they used from 2017, you can actually see him again in State House using the same propaganda machinery. He started by saying that the army had been recruited to overthrow the results at Bomas. And you know how much we respect our army in this country. He dragged them into the electoral process in this country. He has now come again and said Chebukati was being kidnapped. A person with security officers around him, with a security detail thrown around him by the then current executive, to ensure that he protected himself and other commissioners. How more weird can your mind be, making those kind of allegations on that kind of a platform? And this is why we said, if you have that information, hand it over to the police. Let the agencies that are charged with that kind of work do their work. They will do it in their own manner, professionally, without planting seeds of discord in this country. As a head of state, and even if acting, or you are there by legitimate means, the current ones, the first thing that you must do is to bring people together. When you stand in front of us, we want to see a symbol of unity, a person who has some message of hope but not every minute hopelessness. So he has brought in the army, he has brought in the police, he's dragged in the former president into this, he's dragged in the former prime minister into it, he's dragged in Azimio into it. This is not a small issue. In fact, it is a proper ground of impeachment if we had a functioning parliament. But parliament is already a captive, captured by the executive. You can see the judiciary, hot air, manenos is a capture, and the high fives that you see between the president and the president of the Supreme Court. Those high fives are done by buddies, people, you don't expect those kind of things from those kind of offices. You can actually see other institutions that are completely lost it, the DPP, left, right, and center, dropping cases, saying that there were cases that were pushed by the former executive. If they were pushed by the former executive, why the office of the DPP has constitutional protection is so that the occupier of that office never acts or takes any action as directed by the executive. If he actually took people to court because he was directed by the executive, that is a ground of removal from the office of the DPP. He also said before that he cannot agree with Kinoti because I don't work at anybody's instruction. So that double speak, also common now with the current regime. Again, another evidence of persons, things that are not functioning. So, and this is why we are saying, if then those allegations are to be dispensed with, perhaps it is important to have a commission of inquiry. That commission of inquiry, of course, now we have an illegitimate government in power. If they are going to have a legitimate lot of people in power, they are going to put up a commission of inquiry. That commission of inquiry can only be useful if it is jointly constituted. Because if you put up, you are alleging something against one side, then you put individuals who just carry out instructions as you have given them. And what we think is useful for the country is for you to give, allow again that to be dealt with by a commission that you have no control over.
Okay. And as Azimio, have you fully accepted your role in opposition? And have there been structures put in place to ensure that for the next 4 years, you absolutely execute your mandate?
The next 4 years, if you are seeing them as 4 years, remember from yesterday, we are dealing with an illegitimate regime, a regime that lacks legitimacy. The role of opposition, let me address it a little differently, but still answering your statement or your question. The work of those who find themselves in the minority is provided for under the Constitution, our current Constitution. We don't need any other law amended for us to perform our role the way we should do. One of the ways of carrying out our laws is Kamukuji, People's Barasa. So we are already at it.
All right.
And we will do it, we will execute it very meticulously. And I want to tell you, this is an opposition like no other you have seen in this country. We will do it very well. We are supposed to carry out that work within Parliament through our members of Parliament. Remember also, we were in the opposition with a majority of members of Parliament. Something that William and Rigathi could not fathom. They had no idea, they had no clue on how to deal with that kind of a scenario. It is not unusual. Today, in the US, the Congress is made up of, the majority in the Congress are those who are not in the Democratic Party. Yet they are functioning, but they are putting the government in check. But these clueless people, they have no leaders, they are completely directionless. They could not even imagine. They panicked from day one because we had more members of Parliament than them. We had more MCAs, more governors, more senators than them. And you also ask yourself, how you end up with majority in all those sectors and you have somebody else declared as a president. How, hata kama hujaenda shule kubwa, ambayo kama zile tuliona zimeandikwa kwa magazeti, kichwa yako itakwambia kuna kitu haigiani. So in terms of opposition, we will do it very well, and we will perform it, and we will execute it. And that allows me to say this. Raila has the Nyanza block locked, Western block locked, Coast block locked. He is here in Nairobi, and I'm talking about the outcome of the results there. Go to Northeastern, he is there. Central Kenya or Mount Kenya region, for the first time in the political career of Raila Amolo Odinga, we are still counting, but we gave him 2.607, 597 votes. 2.607 million votes, 597 votes. We are still counting. Chebukati had only given him 800,000. With those votes and his locked blocks, how could he lose the presidency? Chebukati, hata ile kidogo ya CBC hesabu hukufikiria. These are things that can be put together by the CBC candidates now that we have. I don't understand why he would have to make that kind of a mistake. Yes.
Now that you've actually brought up Mount Kenya, as you've said, even yesterday, you read some numbers. And you mentioned specific places like Nyeri, Kirinyaga.
I mentioned Kiambu.
Yes, Kiambu.
Mentioned Nyeri.
Yes.
Yes, and I have the figures here. If you allow me to refer to my notes, because these are things we have gotten now from the servers. And I can tell you, of course, to the anger, to the annoyance of Ligiji and Rigathi and his all other names, Raila got 174,000 votes, 172 in Nyeri. Ruto got 152,375. Raila won in Nyeri. That must make Rigathi very angry. Kiambu, Raila got 434,000 votes, 501, against Ruto's 371,377. The information that we will be letting to the public soon is actually that members of parliament who learn on Jubilee ticket in the name of Judy Jomo, Jimmy, this guy of Remuro, Boro, Jonah Boro, Radia Waredia, he has used his funny name, Waredia, in Githongori. We have this other Mwadhi, we have Wajiko Kibe. They didn't lose. Their results were literally taken away from them.
Does this also
apply
to you?
No, I will leave myself in it.
Okay.
And I actually don't even want to win. I'm doing better without being a member of parliament. Member of parliament is not an easy thing. So and we have the results. Even in Laikipia, where it was closest, you can see Raila at 84,366 and Ruto at 83,687. These results are there. In Mount Kenya, Raila got 2.6 million, 607, 957, as opposed to the 800,000 that he was given by William Ruto. So in the coming days, we'll be able to let you into the figures. But now I can tell you, it is upon anybody who thinks that these figures are not right to come up and tell us how else would you be able to show us where we are if it isn't from.
Because I have a question, because now with the report saying Raila won with over 8 million votes.
8.1 million votes.
Yes, and then William Ruto had around 5 million.
5, yes.
Yes, that is a very huge disparity. My question is, why didn't a number of Azimio Party agents raise the alarm? Because this is a very huge disparity.
Last night I was called by individuals from a place I will not tell you in Mount Kenya. It's on my phone. They told me, we are blah, blah, blah in this area, and we did this. Stop struggling with what happened. Let us have face-to-face with you. We will tell you what these people did. These numbers that we are showing you are the ones that found their way into the server. Before the voting, there was a lot of bad work that was done. And I can tell you, it was not just Chebukati and his 2 commissioners. It was Chebukati, his POs, his RLOs, and the clerks that were involved in this process. So there is tampering that was done from the way people came to vote all the way. One person told me the other day, and I said when we finished when we left the polling stations, and some of my members of staff who I had traveled with up country and were a little bolder than the people we found on the ground, told me there's something wrong. And they used to call me. They were calling. Some of them had worked with you in IEBC. And there's one gentleman, and he told me, this is not what you are doing in IEBC. Mheshimiwa, there's something wrong. I cannot be allowed to verify what has been done with the Kim's kit. Nimewekwa huko kwa kona. Nikiuliza maswali, wananiitia polisi. Now, let me tell you, they had the barakoas. The barakoas had even a marking. If it is a person who needed to be given more than one ballot, they knew who. This is a well-done thing. And I want to tell you again, what we are now getting, these numbers, are the ones that found themselves into the servers. They are those numbers that were tampered with, where there's nothing any equipment can do. What you rely on is the human aspect of a human being who respects his own dignity and can be entrusted with something to produce the truth. That failed also. IEBC is rotten to the core. It is not the commissioners alone. And that is why they must kick out these other 4 commissioners. Because these other 4 commissioners have not been in that system. They certainly want a clean slate. You need a person with a conscience. Why EACC functioned for those 3-4 years without the manenos of before? And EACC, we are talking of the Anti-Corruption Commission. It's because of the consciousness of Wabukara. The human aspect, which will never be replaced by any machinery, any IT, any whatever you do. There is always going to be a human aspect. And as long as that is not functioning, is not there, you will never function. This country has a problem with that human aspect. It is what was done by Chebukati, and he did it all the way to the cracks. So it is not that our agents could not detect it. It is because the whole system was worked up against them. And I want to say this again. I am not going to say that we are going to put more emphasis on our agents going into the future. We want a functioning IEBC. We want, and even if we end up with commissioners soon, and I hope that happens, how we end up with them, I do not know yet. But whoever it is that is eyeing that job, let him know and hear what we are saying. We need that human aspect. Na tunataka mtu wako na utu. Na tunataka mtu mwenye hana jaa. We can now tell you the kind of structures that are being put up by the individuals who are in IEBC. That is not going to be useful to us.
Now, with these 4 commissioners that you have just said, if the whole of IEBC is rotten and corrupt, and there was this huge scheme from even, as you said, from the voting even before, why did they not say anything? Because what has happened is, you can tell now, even coming back to the 15th of August, that is when everybody realized, and by everybody I mean the rest of us Kenyans, is we realized that this commission is divided. And there's a very, very huge problem. And now we have those 3 out of the 4 commissioners even resigned before facing this tribunal that is led by Justice Agri Muchelule. And some can argue, did they resign because of guilt?
One, let me say this, that the commissioners would keep the words of Professor Gurie to me. These commissioners you brought here, we will keep them busy. And true to it, they were kept busy. Go represent us in France. They're having elections. Go to India. Go to this. You go through their work, the activities that they were involved in. They were permanently out doing something on behalf of the commission. The 3 commissioners never left Kenya. During the election period, they were given assignments, which is normal for people to be given assignments. You'll be in charge of this, in charge of this, in charge of this. Some of them were even told to be in charge of dignitaries. You are the one, because it's a commission, a functioning commission. There will be somebody at that level who will receive dignitaries. So you are busy receiving ambassadors, but the three commissioners are busy cooking things inside there. That is how the four commissioners were kept busy. Remember, they came on board April last year. Elections happening in August. If the other commissioners had been doing cooking something, it was very difficult for any new person to come and unearth. It was the responsibility of the chairman of the commission to ensure that everything was put on the board, on the table, and bring the other new people on board as quickly as possible. If it is the intention of those older members to keep you in the dark, you will remain in the dark, and you are likely to exit without having known much that happens in institutions. When you finally get appointed in boards, if a board decides to behave that way, you will end up where the four commissioners are today. As to why they resign, certainly they are being forced to resign. If you are being threatened with all these things, and remember, this is not an easy thing. It is a tribunal. You need to go with a lawyer, and a lawyer who is good. A lawyer who is good is also expensive. How many of them have the capacity to meet those costs? In the keeping of what we've been doing as a country, if you look at Cherera, for example, whom I met after this debacle, you meet Cherera, the Cherera you see on the cameras there is not the Cherera you come across with. It's a young lady. She's just a young lady who was passionate in serving this country. So you are not going to find her with a bag of millions where she can pay lawyers, a team of lawyers to represent her. So some of us, when faced with this kind of scenario, would quickly forward and say, me, I have a child I want to educate. And you run away quickly to your family. That's what has been done to these people. It's very unfortunate for this country. And the most unfortunate thing is the lack of, the lack of, I don't know how to say it, but people, Kenyans, many of the, and especially the leaders we have, even within parliament, they lack that inner drive that is beyond the 50,000 you are given when you go to State House. You saw the other pastor who walked in State House and walked out with an envelope. Hiyo itawasubua sana. Hiyo ikiingia kwa kichwa. Need somebody with a spine. That's what I was looking for. A spine. These commissioners, I sympathize with them from day one. The executive decided to kick them out. You could tell. They called me and told me, Secretary General, this is difficult for us. As we are being told to do, we did our resignation letters, they have not received. That was much later. And they had to take them to State House. Nobody else in the system was receiving the letters. Can you imagine yourself taking a letter to State House, unakutana pale kwa gate, inachukuliwa? So you really mistreating them completely. Then you are said, we are telling her we are being told to do blah, blah, blah. A commission has already been put in place. The tribunal has been selected. We already know the members. They knew the name of Mucherure before he was mentioned. They knew, before even the parliamentary committee had done their work, they already knew what was, that their goose, as they say, was already cooked. So, and you could really sympathize with them. I must say, Nani has tried. The lady, Masit has really tried to offer that. We have asked to be enjoined because our names are being mentioned there. We have now asked our lawyers to go and ask to be enjoined, and we can see some objection already, because again there must be something ya kwamba lazima kuwe hii si kitu mzuri haki ya Mungu.
And now coming back to the 15th of August.
Yes.
When did you realize that Wafula Chebukati was about to announce President William Ruto as the president-elect at the time? Because I was there myself and I could tell that nobody knew until, or from my opinion, until the very, very last minute. We were all waiting. I could see Kenya Kwanza on one side, Azimio on one side, until, of course, the chaos that happened. But that is when now we had the split screen. So for you, as Mheshimiwa Kioni, where were you at the time? What call did you receive, or were you at Bomas yourself? And I mean, what was your reaction?
I was at Bomas severally. prior to that, build up to that. I would go to Bomas and go all the way to where you could get beyond there, of course. But we, as we were sitting on those terraces or those benches, whatever, I don't know what you call them in the auditorium, I had a feeling all is not well. Because you could see the activities on the floor that were not adding up. And a lot of suspicious movements. Nothing looked coordinated. And then you are there for 3 hours, seated and waiting, and for those 3 hours, not a single outcome is given to you on the screen, not as an individual. You don't see anything, no movement. So we kept asking, hawa watu wanaongezea, ni nini wanafanya pale? Why is it that we cannot see the work that they are doing? That time, Chepkati has disappeared. He's gone. We only are hearing the 2 commissioners, the 4 commissioners available around here. You can see them. You ask them, and you can actually tell that they also are not quite in terms with anything. They couldn't tell you what was happening. So then the time that they decided to do this, they did a clearing of the whole. Tokeni. The police officers, knowingly or unknowingly, I don't want to say anything, but they cleared. Normally, when announcement is being done, there are many security arrangements that must be put in place. If they think they have a good control over the situation, they may not want to clear people. If they think they don't, they may want just to clear people. All those are security measures that will be put in place. But let me tell you, the announcement of the numbers, the time I knew there's a problem was the happening of William Ruto's compound. You could see William had been prepared ahead of any other person. How you get your grandmother or your mother who doesn't move freely in a matatu into that kind of a place, how you ensure that he has a new cloth, amevaa nguo mpya, watoto wako na suit na kila mtu wako tiari, and you can already see their preparation. That told us something is completely amiss. That was the first indication to me that is going to be announced. When did I know the rigging was on? The actual rigging, I can tell you, I saw it during the day. The fear of rigging, we had it before that day. Because we could tell, some people were saying, are you sure do you know you are a returning officer? Munaelewana na yeye. You could be asked by members of parliament wale walikuwa in the know and they were sympathizing. And those members were asking us and still in book, munaelewana na yeye, blah blah. You could now tell something I've never done in my life. I've never bothered to know who is a presiding officer or whatever. But this time you are required to know the recruitment of cracks. Were you involved? You'd rather get your own cracks in place. Those are things when, of course, now in retrospect, you could tell those were the areas that perhaps we needed also to use our money to influence if you believe in the rigging, if you don't believe in the independence of institutions. But you remain hopeful until the last day. Given the work that we had done as Azimio and the reception that we were seeing and the surveys, every single polling that was done, we had the confidence that we may have lost members of parliament through the manipulation of results at different levels and members of the county assembly, but we will be able to run the government. And we're already thinking of how are we going to run the government with so many people who have come on board through some crooked ways. So that announcement was a shocker to me. But the one that was even worse was the one on the Supreme Court. That was even heavier. That is the one that caught us completely, we couldn't believe it. Because unlike any other petition, and even the lawyers were saying, we have done 3 petitions, 2013, 2017, now 2022. This is where, and that's why you saw the boxes. This is where we have produced what the Supreme Court asked us in 2013, we did not have. 2017, we did not have. We now have given them. They refused to look at it. And they said, wild goose, hot air, forgery, all those kind of things. So that really hit us. And it kept coming in doses. I must thank James Olengo. I still remember him standing up and saying, we have accepted, or we have, whatever words he used on the floor. I must respect, I saw the courage of a person who decided to say the correct things for the sake of the country moving on.
Yeah.
Raila thereafter, Uhuru thereafter, all of them having agreed to just say, we accept, we respect this, we are moving on. Those are moments where you need people who love this country when they desire to win an election.
Okay.
Yes.
And now that we're talking about moving on, are we going to move on?
We are moving on. We are moving on.
election?
I want to assure you we are moving on. And moving on is everybody to play his role and to deal with the evidence that is before us in a manner that should be dealt with. Our first moving on yesterday was to say, given what we already now have, and it's available for everybody to see, we as leaders of Azimio cannot continue recognizing these people in office.
Yes.
This is an illegitimate government, and we have removed our recognition from them based on those facts. Moving on is engaging Kenyans. Kenyans must share into this. They accept with our direction or they don't. Again, it is a way of moving on. Those who are holding on to the offices, for the time they are holding on to offices, they need to move on. So nobody is stopping the other one from moving on. Moving on does not mean that they accept with what you believe in. No. Moving on is dealing with what I know in the best way possible, but for the best of the country. Yes.
And what if the demands that were stated yesterday are not met? Like, for example, opening the servers.
Again, if they don't open the servers, we already have the servers information. Yes, it's already with us. And Kenyans have consumed it. So even if they don't open the servers, we did not expect them to open them on their own account. We had requested them to do it through the court of law, but they didn't do it. And again, the Supreme Court failed to exercise that authority. Unfortunately, I must say that that's another institution that is completely limping. The Supreme Court, you may not talk about the same thing of other arms of on other levels of our judiciary, but the Supreme Court certainly is one that let us down. Again, the history will be written, and they will say that they even went to the point of saying that the judgment was from God. You don't want to say anything about that when somebody calls upon the Almighty. Kila mtu anaomba na njia yake, anaamini na njia yake, lakini mimi mwenyewe hiyo judgment inaweza kuwa ilitoka pahali ilitoka, lakini it may have been given what we now know. It is certainly something that is very, very different. Now, God can also allow you to look at figures that are fake. If you yourself, you are also fake. He's a mysterious God.
And also now with the moving on, as we conclude this interview, I want to ask you, before I ask you what's next for you individually, politically, I want to ask you about former President Uhuru Kenyatta. Of course, we've seen that he's taken up this role, and he's been very successful in establishing peace in DRC. When it comes to, obviously, him enjoying his retirement benefits, he cannot continue to be the chairperson of Azimio. This is something that, have you discussed with him? Is he going to continue, or should we soon expect him to step down?
No, I haven't discussed this with him. And we say that if I had said that I was coming for this interview at 10 and I'm not called to say that I've cancelled, you expect me to come. The head of state former has not changed his status. He is retired. He is the head of the institutions that still allow him to be head of the institutions in terms of Azimio and Jubilee. He has not communicated to us anything to the contrary, or even his intention to the contrary. So he continues that way until he himself does it. Remember, that's a very personal thing. Yeah. It's a thing that he needs to decide himself and the family. And the respect that we need to pay to him is to allow him to deal with it at his own time. He's led this country for 10 years. 10 years, and he's made heavier decisions Certainly, the one of whether to take the benefits or not is a very simple thing. But let me now throw in my personal feeling that you will choose to enjoy those benefits and move on, or you will choose to be available to a country that needs you. It's a patriotic thing.
Okay.
I would have chosen to walk over to UDA and become a member of parliament for Daragwa. I chose to start with Azimio and what I believe is right. Many people in Daragwa may not have agreed with me, and they chose to go the other side. That doesn't move me from what I believe in, because I believe this is the correct thing. In the fullness of time, you see that these are personal decisions. Sacrifices are made by people who think of generations. Those simple decisions are taken by individuals who think of themselves. Issues of those personal benefits are things that's why they are called personal benefits. They are supposed to benefit you as a person. And they are really things you take, yes, because we've given to you as a country in terms of saying thank you for having served us. But when you, like the situation we are in, he is required by the global, the regional countries, the regional leadership. If they are seeing value in him now, why would we as Kenyans want to hurry him into retirement? We have something to benefit from him. He's young, he is strong, he's not ailing as Kibaki. He's not in the same age as Kibaki. We accepted Kibaki needed to take a rest and have time with his family, and he did, and thank God that we had him as our leader. But if you ask me, Uhuru, I would want to consult him from time to time. He certainly will be he will be required in this country going forward. These people who are in office have been unable to take off. You never know, not that we want him as head of state, but a telephone call to say, tafadhalini, sumameni, ama namna hiyo. These are things we'll be happy to have. And I tell you, he's the chairman of the Azimio Council, and he's the party leader of Jubilee, and we're happy to have him there. I wouldn't be in a hurry to ask him to relinquish any of those things. He can survive. He has survived before without those personal benefits. Yes.
All right.
And look also, Raila has not taken the personal benefits. Kalonzo has not taken the personal benefits. Why? They are still useful to this country. So he already has example and fortunately good company of individuals who've chosen to serve the nation, other than benefit from the provisions, the state trappings, because you have served in those offices. So it's a patriotic thing not to take. Yes.
All right. And now finally, lastly, looking forward 2027 for you personally, number one, are you going to try your hand at running for any seat? And also, we've had Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka state that he would not support Raila Odinga again. He actually even said, please pray for me to get out of this political prison. So all the indication is that he would want to actually vie for the presidency. So what happens if Raila decides to take his sixth stab at this presidency? Who are you going to support?
I will be with him. And we will be with the direction Azimio takes. What happens tomorrow is not something that you can talk about with any level of certainty. Haya ni mambo ya Mwenyezi Mungu, and that's why Kalonzo says, play for me. Because he feels, he could be feeling like, yes, it's a political prison that he's in. And what happens in the coming days unfolds the decisions that you are made in this country on how to manage the leadership of a country are very delicate, and they involve very many things. And what do you say? The things are still moving. The parts are still moving until almost the last day. So there are decisions you cannot make now. My prayer is that as Azimio, we remain intact. We remain committed to this cause. I was happy with the statements that Kalonzo made yesterday. and every other person made yesterday, commitment to ensure that we have a better Kenya tomorrow. We'll be there. I am happy to be a Secretary General of Jubilee, to be serving the law that I'm serving in Azimio. Even if it was not for those leadership positions that I have, I can tell you that I'll be happy to serve the way I'm serving. I don't have to be a member of parliament. You can be more useful. Let me tell you, if I was a member of parliament, I would not have been able to do what I've done in the last 3 months as Secretary General of Jubilee and as a member of Azimio. Because being a member of parliament is very involving. Being a Secretary General and doing the things that we are doing is another 24/7. So you never know. Maybe this is what I will do for a couple of days, a couple of months, couple of years.
All right.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much.
Nashukuru pia.
Mheshimiwa, for coming and taking the time to sit with us at Kenyans.co.ke. Please continue to consume our news. As you can see, we are a youth-led organization.
Yeah, and I must commend you for that. I'm so impressed. I'm always very happy when I walk into a room and it's made up of very young people. God bless you.
Oh, thank you.
Asante sana wa Kenya.
Yes, and thank you so much. And we actually wish you the best as you continue in both your professional and your personal life.
Asante sana.